Yes, of course. It was all because of the aliens. All the way back in 1992, a little game called E.V.O The Search for Eden by Almanac came out. It was an interesting experience that told the story of evolution in a very basic but endearing way. The main character was a random creature who Gaia had taken notice of, with Gaia being the embodiment of the Earth. With Gaia's guidance, the main character slowly progresses through the ages, from the dawn of life, to the dinosaur, to the ice ages, all the way till the beginning of man. To accompany this story would be a side-scrolling platformer with a unique leveling mechanic that would probably be what E.V.O is best remembered by, where the main character uses the stored EXP, gotten through the game, to level up individual body parts, such as increasing damage by changing jaw shapes. It was a cool fusion of gameplay and story, where in order to survive, you would have to evolve. It was a game that, while I recognize is honestly kinda technically, does have a very compelling and innovative mechanic, which I'm always in for. So I had pretty fond memories of when I played this one as a kid. Now, what I didn't know at the time is that this E.V.O was actually an adaptation of Almanac's earlier game called Yonjiroku Okunen Monogatari, the Shinkaron, which translated to English is something like the 4.6 billion year story, The Theory of Evolution. This game never came out of Japan and was released exclusively on the PC 98. Apparently, the SNES version that everyone is familiar with was made by a newer team which was less experienced, and tried to give a more fantastic rather than scientific representation of evolution. As for the authenticity of these statements I just made, I ripped this straight from Wikipedia and I couldn't get to the source, as it's from an 18-year-old article, so, you know. Anyway, so that got me curious. If E.V.O The Search for Evolution was a simpler adaptation, what was the original like? And well, apparently, the short answer is way cooler. The whole tiny subplot of Martians bringing the crystals to Earth that seemed to come out of absolutely nowhere in the SNES version, yeah, that was one of the main focuses of the game. So, I guess that's what they meant by less scientific. E.V.O The Theory of Evolution is pretty dang wild, and thanks to the wonderful folks at 46 Okumen, the game has been fully fan-translated into English by them so everyone can enjoy this amazing gem of a game. Normally I like to introduce games with the assumption that maybe some of you would be interested in playing yourself. However, this time around I think we're gonna try something a little different, where I'm just gonna show off the entire story of the PC 98 E.V.O because I think it's incredibly fascinating. Also, honestly, E.V.O isn't the best technically, and a rudimentary gameplay might scare away people from playing it. Still, before we dive into it, I do want to celebrate some of PC 98 E.V.O's Theory of Evolution's unique mechanics, because while the game itself is simple and grindy, the evolution aspect is still pretty dang cool. This will also give everyone here a baseline impression of E.V.O in case you've got a penchant for older games like I do, and want to experience it yourself before I spoil the absolute heck out of it. Unlike E.V.O The Search for Eden, E.V.O The Theory of Evolution is actually a classic JRPG as opposed to a platformer. The battle system is really just a numbers game where you win by stat checking your enemies. Your only choices in battle are attacking, using a special skill, and running away. And honestly, you can, for the most part, ignore the special skill function almost entirely. Even though you learn a ton of special moves as you evolve, none of it is really necessary, as you can just smash your face into the enemies until you win. Outside of battle, you can run around the overworld map and dungeons as you find events to progress the main story. Now, what is unique about PC 98's E.V.O is, as you might imagine, the evolution system, just like it was in the SNES E.V.O. It does, however, work quite a bit differently. Just like in Search for Eden, between every era, you fight other creatures and stock evo points. However, unlike in the other game where you evolve individual body parts, here you level one of 4 stats: Wisdom, Endurance, Vitality, and Attack. And whenever you reach a breakpoint, as indicated by the number in the parentheses, you will evolve down the evolution tree, either horizontally or downwards, learning new skills and increasing your stats. The evolution chart starts out pretty small, but by the last era, it gets kind of ridiculously huge. A fun part of this evolution system is that, aside from it honestly being pretty confusing as to how you actually go down the chart, if you go too far in one direction, you instantly get hit with a bad ending, as you evolve into some sort of weird creature who can't function in a new world. There's a lot of these bad endings, but some of them are fun to watch for a quick laugh. And that's about it! E.V.O The Theory of Evolution is simple, but the story is an incredible ride all the way through, and much more fascinating than the original. Obviously from this point on there will be spoilers, but otherwise sit back, relax, and let me reveal the theory of evolution told through 4.6 billion years, how we somehow go from this to this. Also, there are like 100 species we will be evolving into, and I will probably butcher the name of every single one of them, so there's that. Our main character begins, as all life does, as a single cellular organism all the way to a multicellular organism, specifically a Theodus. So, kind of like a fish in the SNES version. We meet some gang of other Theodus who become strangely familiar throughout our life. Afterwards, talking with other members of the community, we meet up with the Elder to give our greetings. However, a bright light strikes out of nowhere, and all of a sudden, everyone hates our guts and wants us dead. A random female Theodus, who I guess is the Elder's granddaughter, attempts to cover for us, but we are nonetheless ousted from the community. Upon being thrust into the outside world, I attempt to battle our first enemy, who's gone crazy due to being hit by the strange light. Upon which I instantly die because apparently we're just way weaker than they are. Taking lessons from the SNES days, I decide to instead pick on those weaker than me, which are the jellyfish. After exterminating every single one of those buggers and evolving into a Hemicyclopus, I take revenge on every single dang Theodus who beat me originally. You might be thinking that isn't it kinda wrong that we are killing and eating all these creatures who we used to be the same species of, but it's okay because, you know, they gone crazy or something, self-defense. After evolving several more times to a Lunespis, we can finally wander into the cave where we get promptly smashed by invisible currents and get stuck in crevices for way too long. On the way, we meet a hidden Hemicyclopus, who we see in plain sight, so I have no idea how it's supposed to be hidden, but unfortunately for it, we have evolved far beyond its weak form, so the Hemi gets promptly eradicated. Afterwards, we see some familiar faces who inform us of this incredible power that seems to explode people who get near it, so naturally we go out to find it. After getting lost for God knows how long and eating this blue nutritional bar called a Gaia Heart, we evolve into this cool carnivore known as a Deinixtus, I think? This would be cool except for the fact that his dark blue skin blends into the background, so sometimes I lose track of where he is on screen. Somehow getting out of the cave after apparently 3 days, we finally meet more sentient life after all this time, which we promptly devour and consume because of course we do. At this point I realized that screw trying to have balanced stats and dump every point I have into attack, evolving into this green thing. Several genocides and one more evolution later, we finally meet the Blue Lady Gaia again, just like in the SNES version, who informs us that it's been 3 billion years since we've seen her, and that we should evolve to become more of a cool guy before we get to see her again. So, yeah, see ya in 200 more million years, I guess. After awkwardly running into her again and staring blankly at her, we go to the right, fight, and evolve into Eustenopetron. Realize we look kinda weak, fight, and evolve back into the slack-jawed blue boy again. Once we cap all of our stats, we finally reach Gaia again, who prompts us to evolve one more time. So we become a Ichthyostega, some sort of lizard or something. Finally ending the first era and starting the second one, the Cold Forest era. Upon reaching land for the first time, I immediately turn on the fish who were too dumb to evolve any further and eat all of them. At this point, we see a cave where we find a group of fellow Ichthyos and quickly form a bond over how disgusting we find the green fish who we just were literally 2 minutes ago. The Ichthyos here talk about how they don't want to fight others, so instead they want to look for this mythical flower evolution that will let them cheat their way further. An Ichthyo mom cries about her son, and the Elder informs us that some of the youths ran off and never returned. So naturally we go look for them and oh no. That ain't good. Reaching the end, we find a dying Ichthyo, who informs us that he ain't making it, and that on their search for the flower evolution, they ran into a protophasma, basically bugs, who beat the stuffing out of them. Then he informs us that if by chance we reach the shrine to the north, to inform his mom that her son is just fine. Oh man. As we return back to the shrine, we're instantly greeted by more sad music, accompanied by a lot of corpses. Reaching the end of the cave, we see one remaining Ichthyostega, the mom of the Ichthyostega youth who died earlier, who tells us that the Elder and all the children were murdered by the insects. Upon informing the mom of the well-being of her son, she thanks us one last time before dying, leaving us the gift of Evo genes. As much as I'm gonna poke fun at the rest of this game's insane story, this is legitimately a pretty sad scene, and I teared up a little when I first read it. Anyways, with a heavy heart, we depart from the shrine, where I turn into a giant blue alligator and get my ass beaten by every single other life form here. After gaming over an untold amount of times and getting lost for way too long, I finally managed to reach new land by realizing that even though most water is untouchable, this one is. After turning into a blue lizard known as the Ethiopes, we run into the self-proclaimed flower of evolution who looks to be eating other Ethiopes, where we promptly get tentacle slapped away. In another cave, we run into 4 suspiciously familiar looking Cacops, who talk about how the flower evolution is a fake. Are these the same gang of Theodices who evolved from before? Probably not, but we'll be seeing more of them in the future anyways. After some goofy sitcom moments, they talk about something in the marshlands which the evil flower blocking our way hates, so we head over there as well. After killing a couple of other creatures, we reach max stats and turn into an Anubisaurus, which is slick because he's got spikes. He's also incredibly fast, way faster than any other evolution thus far, which, while a great idea on paper, runs into the problem where you can't control your movements at all and keep running into walls, as this game is full of slanted pathways. Anywho, we fall into the marsh and get covered in really stinky mud, so stinky that the carnivorous plant yells out that he's a fake in fear, and that the real flower of evolution is further inside. Then he dies due to the stench. Sure, alright. Past him, we reach a paradise land full of water and riches, which also happens to be absolutely hell for us, as this entire location requires us to navigate through holes in the wall, which are 2 pixels wide, when each tap of the button throws us like 5 pixels in any direction. Not only that, it's also a teleporting maze! You don't even want to know how long it took me to get through this entire stupid area. I was stuck for so long trying to enter these stupid tiny gaps over and over and over. Anywho, at the end of this hell on earth, we reach Gaia again, who tells us that this is the flower of evolution, which shouldn't exist in this era, and that all the forests are dying due to a strangely shaped mountain in the northwest. A bunch of Ethiopes are also around here, but since we only fight in self-defense, they live to see another day. After searching for a quick exit out, I realized that I'm forced to go back the way I came in, and silently consider quitting the game. An hour travel later, past a few oceans and getting lost again, we reach something resembling a mountain. Apparently, a bunch of fellow Anubisauruses are here who proclaim themselves as the silent guardians of the forest. After reaching the very top, we join one of our fellow countrymen staring out at the distance, and realize very quickly that we are on the entirely wrong mountain. After another period of being horrendously lost, we finally reach the rock, which is balancing miraculously on a single point, and with a quick nudge, it is knocked down, freeing the water and saving the plants as decades pass. Wake up in a random river, I return back to Hell on Earth, only to realize that apparently the mountain that freed the water still isn't the mountain the guy was talking about way back when. Along the way, God smites us twice back to back for no good reason, and its random Cacops throws dirt in our face. Kinda rude. Sometime afterwards, we somehow reach a mysterious monument which our main character doesn't recognize, but everyone here watching immediately goes, "Oh, aliens." At the very top, past all the weird contraptions and the teleporting caves, we see a blue life form holding a sparkling gem which starts speaking to us, talking about a mysterious Lord Lucifer and how a second planet will go down the same path, and also about the Lunarians and some absolutely batshit stuff. Apparently, Lord Lucifer is starting some sort of vegetation evolution system, which is what messed up the forest. Some sort of insane fight happens, probably involving phaser beams, and the message cuts off. After slapping the blue spear in this weird mystic machine, it turns off and the forest is saved. At this point, my interest in E.V.O dramatically increased because, up until this point, the game has been pretty close to the SNES version. But of course, what kind of Japanese game about evolution would be complete without the intrusion of the extraterrestrials and, you know, Lucifer? After returning back to Anubisaurus Mountain, we meet the guy at the top again, who is actually the son of the original guy, since apparently a long time has passed since then. For some reason I expected a reward, but he literally just says, thanks, and I'm forced to navigate through the horrendous overworld, with this mini-map telling me next to nothing. After returning to Gaia once more, we finally end the second era, reaching Chapter 3, the Death Star era. Wait, what? The light of dark and space? Are we becoming Jedi? Do we gotta fight the Sith? After doing the usual of butchering every creature in our path and evolving into a Theria Roria, we reach the top of a strangely familiar mountain where we see a literal UFO accompanied by green bipedal lizardmen calling for help. This game isn't even trying to hide these aliens anymore. After saving him, Green Lizardboard informs us that he is a Lunarian, a denizen of the moon, and a scout for Lady Lucifer, who was ordered to come to Earth for a reconnaissance mission. Apparently, after the Venetians and the Martians were destroyed, these guys are the only ones left to protect the planets of the solar system, because yes, I do trust someone called Lady Lucifer. They need the parts on his flying saucer. There are so many things I could say about this entire scene, but let's just move on for now. Soon after, we reach a cave, which again has a very familiar looking gang of green creatures, only this time, they are Scaramouses, who talk about a mysterious fountain of evolution, but also weird creatures nearby. Strange. Of course, we head over because we are curious, where I immediately run into a gelatinous cube and die. Whoa then. After being forced to redo an entire section because I didn't save, we get closer to the fountain of evolution. Here we see giant blobs of former oh no. Although honestly, all things considered, they seem to be taking their transformation into giant abomination blobs pretty well. At the center of this area, we see some absolutely horrendous monstrosities squirming around. So obviously, we take the next immediate step of drinking the water they're in, and we receive a whole bunch of E.V.O points. Then we drink it again, cause hey, the first time wasn't so bad, right? The third time we nearly vomited, but I'm sure it was nothing. One more time can't hurt. Oh wait, we're melting. After one more sip, we finally evolve into a Dragon Quest slime. Well hey, at least we're smiling. Going back in time before we decide to do something incredibly stupid, we instead wander around a bit until we hit a cave where a bunch of slimes talk about a shrine that can return them back to their former bodies. Oh, and you know, also one slime ranting about how
Nemesis will obliterate you weaklings from the annals of time.
Huh, neat. At this point, Gaia pops in to inform us of a wicked being that wants to rule over Earth, whom she calls E.V.O. Obviously, it's Lady Lucifer, who apparently destroyed the Venetians through environmental destruction and the Martians through nuclear warfare. I feel like one of those is a lot more efficient than the other, but what do I know? I'm a green lizard. She also informs us that way back 500 million years ago, that flash of light that made everyone turn into assholes was all her fault. Anyways, we flee to the west, touch a glowing ball that makes us evolve into something more dinosaur-like, then reach the shrine just in time before Nemesis blocks the sun and kills the entire northern hemisphere. While it seems like Lucifer won, everything also evolved and eventually lived, so let's chill. Leading the way into the fourth chapter, the aptly named Terrible Lizard Era, which after the Death Star era, isn't anywhere near as exciting of a name. Back on the same familiar mountain overlooking forest, we get some foreshadowing about how in the future, two-legged creatures will threaten the forest, but then we'll save them. Two-legged? You know, I would say humans, except for the fact that we clearly saw Lunarians earlier, so... After accidentally evolving too far getting killed by volcanoes, instead we turn into a squirrel, I mean a Protoon gulatum. And then we slam our points in endurance and attack to not die, which somehow turns us into this big green running boy looking like he's gonna book it. Since that form is pretty lame, we instead evolve one more time into a fat blue lizard known as a Hypsognathus. Coming upon a sewer system, we reach what looks to be our first boss fight in the form of a future golem. Being noticed we're bros with the Lunarians after saving that one guy way back when, so lets us through before dying. There we receive another dying message where the Lunarians talk about how Lucifer came in and gifted them advanced technology, but in the end it actually turned the world into a toxic cesspool, so they had to run, warning about the dangers of too advanced technology. There's probably some sort of message here, but we're a fat blue lizard, so we pretty much ignore it. Moving on, we reach the Petrodons, where the Elder tells us of a prophecy regarding the end of the world, but since he's really old, everyone just kind of treats him like he's gone senile. He tells you Terran would believe him, and to seek him out, dying after conveying his final message because that is somehow the standard form of communication in this world. After beating up a bunch of herbivores, we then evolve several times, taking forms such as Psittacosaurus, a Dromaeosaur, which is like a proto-dog, Ectosonus, which, oh, whoops, we went too far and got flooded, this green thing with a weird bald top, until we finally reach a Megalosaurus. Then we meet another gang of strangely familiar creatures, this time Ectosonuses, who talk about a weird cave and list a bunch of steps I tried to memorize, then quickly gave up since I figured it wasn't important anyways. Earlier, we were also informed that there was some terrifying dinosaur known as a Lucifer Tyranno terrorizing others, which is important since we literally just run into him right now. Expecting a boss fight I regretted not saving, until Lucifer Tyranno reveals that he actually regrets taking Lucifer's deal because now he has no friends. Aww. He also became vegetarian and only eats fruits and nuts now. And he lost weight too. Good on him. He then waves us away, telling him that we're pals now and to call him for his help if we need him. What a good guy. Approximately 1 minute later, we run into Lucifersaurus, who proclaims himself as the strongest creature ever. So we quickly enlist the help of our newfound friend, Lucifer Tyranno, who in a brilliant display of friendship, is instantly down to help us fight a battle to the death. Lucifersaurus laughs at how Lucifer Tyranno calls us a friend when puny beings should be slaves, with Lucifer Tyranno hitting him back with a
"You're wrong! You're the true slave! A slave to power!"
sick burn, Tyranno. They then fight to the death and both die. Farewell, Lucifer Tyranno. We've known each other for literally a minute, but you'll always be a true friend. Lucifer appears out of absolutely nowhere then to give us a work offer, even though we didn't do anything in that fight. But unfortunately, we're already employed under Gaia and we haven't talked about severance benefits yet, so we refuse. She then leaves us after taunting us, saying how she'll wipe out this world and all life as we know it. Gaia then cries about how the Great King of Terror will kill everyone, saying how weak she is, and then going, oh wait, maybe there's that shrine that she won't notice if we're lucky. We then meet up with Terran, who agrees to convey Gaia and that crazy old Petrodon's warnings to save as many lives as possible. We meet with the Triceratops Elder, but he calls us crazy. Luckily, we save his kid who's drowning about a few feet away, and he instantly is down to listen to our insane warnings about the world ending. The Triceratops Elder is also willing to fight to the death against 5 Allosauruses to buy us time to get to the shrine. I attempt to help them out, but the Allosauruses apparently have plot armor, so instead I honor their sacrifice by running past them. A cool sacrifice, but not nearly as cool as Lucifer Tyranno's. Upon reaching the shrine, we evolve one more time, becoming a Pteranodon that doesn't exist in real life, and hide in the cave as Lucifer blows up the world with the Great King of Terror. As all the dinosaurs are blowing up, Lucifer laughs with the thumbnail that every YouTuber who covers this game uses. Most living creatures die from the horrible fallout after this happens, which lowers the temperature of the world and begins the Ice Age. Luckily, Gaia was right and Lucifer somehow didn't notice this tiny shrine, so life continues and we move on to Chapter 5, known as the Lost Continent Era, the final and biggest chapter of the game, excluding the 2 epilogue ones. After doing the usual of eating everything nearby and evolving into a worm, which I'm pretty sure is a mythical creature, we stumble into Gaia, who is overjoyed with our survival, and since Lucifer ran off after thinking we all died, we can chill without her now. Also, we need to learn wisdom to lead this planet into the future, something. Soon after, we reach this mountain where we hit our biggest roadblock since the game began, a stupid rope. In order to progress the main plot, we need to grab something at the top of this vine. Unfortunately, I need to evolve into something that can do it. Even though the Nakamuron, that I currently am, is bipedal and clearly has 2 giant hands, that still doesn't count. After much trial and error, including both accidentally evolving into a straight up dragon and hitting a bad ending, as well as turning into a gremlin and hitting a bad ending, we finally evolve into a Neoquametepus. God, these names are dumb, and can finally climb a stupid rope. At the top, we get another useless Gaia heart, but also reach the Mammoth Burial Ground, where stepping on a bone lets us mysteriously learn how to use tools all of a sudden. Crazy. Just like when Prometheus granted man fire. Also, I'm pretty sure this weird dinosaur with a musical notepad is playing a tune ripped straight from Dragon Quest. Anyways, after becoming Homo ex Dinosaurus, which somehow is the lamest name I've heard all game, we run into a tribe of peaceful early humanoids known as Australopithecus, I can't be bothered, who say they will give us their precious treasure if we destroy the carnivorous primates for them. To be frank, I think it'd probably be faster to beat them up instead, but after struggling to get off this plateau, we run all the way to the other tribe, watch them hump the air, and learn about their weakness to fire. We also become a goblin because, sure, screw it, evolution was stupid anyways. We even get a 6 sword, shield, and armor, which has to be a little confusing considering the fact that we just learned how to pick up a bone. After beating up a whole bunch of early humanoids like Java Men, we go to a volcano, light a stick on fire, obtain live codes. Which, wait, how are we holding them? Who knows? Maybe goblins have insane natural resistance to fire. After accidentally evolving too far again into a goblin and gaming over, we run all the way back to the carnivorous tribe who are now deathly afraid of us thanks to our fire. The tribe leader, afraid of our magic, promises to never eat anyone again and tells us about a mythical place called Shambhala, which just smells like more aliens to me. Returning back to the peaceful tribe, we get our rightly deserved treasure, which is fur. Sounds kinda lame at first, but it is necessary for us to travel to the northern cold parts without freezing to death. Along the way, we run into a Gorgon who absolutely dumpsters me, Luckily, I managed to run for my life before dying. In the northern parts, we finally reach Gaia again, who upon seeing our mighty form, promptly laughs at us. Jeez, thanks Gaia. She also tells us that a ship containing a butt ton of Lunarians has appeared after receiving the signal from their brethren 200 million years ago, and that they've learned their lesson after Lucifer royally screwed them over last time. But it's weird that they split into two sides. Also, Shambhala opens up, which allows us to travel to the legendary continents of Mu and Atlantis. In Shambhala, there are a bunch of warp gates, we stone a bunch of random Java men along the way, and finally we reach Atlantis, which looks to be some sort of super advanced moon base. At the top of Atlantis, the God Emperor proclaims their holy war against the Mu Empire, because they want the world. They also laugh at the Mu people caring about the environment, and something about using the planet's energy in a clockwise rotation that makes absolutely no sense. Anyhow, they got really big guns and worship Lucifer, who is literally one letter off Lucifer, so they ain't good. Still, they've gotta be somewhat tolerant, right? Since it was absolutely fine for us, a random native, to walk right up to their God Emperor to talk to them. Mu then opens up at this point, so we head over there instead. Along the way, we finally evolve into an absolutely sick looking dragon dude known as Gorgon. Remember how they destroyed me earlier? If you can't beat them, join them. In contrast to Atlantis, Mu is a place super concerned about the environment. While Atlantis is gung-ho about waging war, Mu on the other hand seems pretty conflicted. The guard shoos us away from the council chambers, but luckily we have the insane trick of walking past them so we can listen to them in this conveniently placed alcove. There, the Mu King talks about the final weapon which will allow them to wipe Atlantis out, but will also pollute the entire planet. The king reveals that he finally solved the mystery that Lucifer must actually be Lucifer. Wow dang, what an amazing revelation. He also makes the declaration to leave the planet entirely in the hands of the creatures like ourselves who evolved there, but not before utilizing their crust-breaking weapon to sink Atlantis so that the Lunarians won't be able to affect the course of the world. Both the continents of Mu and Atlantis get absolutely destroyed, and we wake up at a random beach. I'm glad everything gets resolved so quickly without us even lifting a finger. More traveling, more fighting, we evolve into a gnome partway through because yeah, sure, dragon to gnome. Makes sense to me. We then run into Gaia again, who says thanks to the Mu, who pretty much did everything this time around. Unfortunately, in their dying breath, Atlantis called Lucifer back, who upon seeing Earth prosperous again, wants to destroy it once more. Before that though, she decides to challenge us to a sick 1v1 duo in the southwest continent. Gaia is shocked that we'd even consider fighting Lucifer 1v1, nonetheless, we head over to Death Mountain anyways. Fighting absolute nonsense like elves and stuff because why not, I suppose. I'm already a goddamn gnome running around with a beard, cape, and stick anyways. In Death Mountain, we stumble upon the Creator, who blesses us with wisdom. At Stonehenge, Lucifer shows up and upon seeing our tablet and newfound wisdom, decides to take us seriously. By that I mean she melts off half of her own face. She is really strong, but luckily the tablet the Creator gave us also gave us the sick powers of magic, utilizing the power of Earth, Ocean, Air, and Love, or something, effectively making us Captain Planet. With the power of Captain Planet and a ton of reloads, we eventually obliterate Lucifer. Lucifer in her dying breath says she'll return and then winks out of existence. Gaia, seeing our newfound wisdom, sick magical skills, and handsome dragon features, calls us over to lead all of Earth into a brighter future. There, we place a tablet and undergo our final evolution. After accidentally evolving Attack and turning into a caveman, we instead pick wisdom and finally evolve into a human. After 3.5 billion years, we have finally reached this point. You would think that the game would naturally be over by this point. We beat the final and only boss throughout the entirety of this game. However, there's still a little bit more to E.V.O. To pick one of 4 choices. As other 3 are all bad endings, we pick wisdom again and embark onto the final epilogue chapter. Chapter 6, Holy War Era, the final confrontation. 60,000 years pass, and in that time period, we have reached immortality and became a spirit guide to the now psychic people of this planet. Yes, you read all of that correctly. Everyone apparently became able to harness the power of psychic energies, and we are now super handsome with giant shoulder pads and a techno outfit. Which, if I learned anything from watching 90s anime, means that we are pretty dang strong. Earth has achieved true peace and is ruled by a single nation, with representatives from each continent located in the South Pole. Unfortunately, the Space Research Force is informed of a 7-winged life form coming from space, and our psychic powers inform us that Lucifer is finally coming back for our final fight. the main character contacts the sages from each continent and all the disciples for this final fight against Lucifer. They say something about finishing the fight in the southern continent like the last fight, even though we're boarding a spaceship this time around. Lucifer's power makes teleportation impossible, however that works, so only we are able to fight her. After the sage gets completely lost, because this minimap is and has been terrible this entire game, we finally make it to the final battle. Our disciples, some grown a leotard, some Buddha guy in armor, one lizard man, one big-eared boy, and some other sci-fi lady, questions our plan of harnessing the energy of every sage into our body and firing a Kamehameha at the devil to beat her. But since we're so handsome, we just smile at them instead. Everyone once again informs us how, if we lose, all life is doomed as we know it. I swear, when I saw this guy say, "All that remains is for you to rise into the air by telekinesis when the devil appears," I could not stop laughing at the mental imagery. Anywho, all the representatives from each place calls us, ready for our final battle, when suddenly Lucifer arrives, which, considering this sentence right here, all I'm imagining is just like a giant naked lady in the sky. Oh my god! Our main character attempts to collect the energy for his giant laser beam, however all the contents are getting systematically destroyed. Acid rain is melting the Europeans, the devil's minions took over Parliament. With no energy heading our way, all happens is that we get bowed to the death and we die. After dying, Gaia comes in at the 11th hour who's like, "Oh dang, even though your physical body is dead, your spiritual body ain't yet. Cool." Lucifer then nukes the moon and turns into a giant abomination. Gaia then reveals that she is planet Earth and was ordered by the creator to hide her existence until humanity has developed fully. And apparently, after seeing our main character telekinesis himself into the air, she was convinced. Which, hey, I mean, that's pretty sick. I'd probably be convinced too. She also reveals that the moon Lunar is her elder sister who just got eaten by the devil. Well, that kinda sucks, I guess. Gaia then shoots all of the power of life into you with the power of fish, amphibian, reptilian, dinosaur, mammals. We become a massive shimmering being that flies into space. Sorry. For a second, I couldn't take it seriously. Let me... Alright, I'm ready. Okay. We didn't get to have our final cosmic battle against Lucifer, where we use a power of life or something to blast the ever-living heck out of her. Sure, she might have the power of Jupiter, but we got the power of fish. After a long fight of waiting all of our dialogue to pass, Lucifer turns into space trash and we win. Finally, we reach the actual epilogue chapter, Celestial Epoch, where something, our physical body is gone, everybody is sad because they are worried that life is over without us, but we float into the ether, merge with all of humanity, and evolve into the future. Which, I don't know, I feel like the idea of everyone combining into one being is usually seen as a bad thing in fiction, but sick, I guess. And yeah, that was E.V.O The Theory of Evolution. Yeah, I can see why the SNES adaptation didn't bother with all of this stuff, because holy was this absolutely hilarious. It's such over-the-top nonsense, but that's also precisely what makes it fun in the first place. Man, Enix back in the day was an entirely different beast, willing to publish the craziest of projects. As much of a mess as this game was, there was a lot of parts of the actual gameplay that was aggravating for certain. It doesn't change the fact that I will fondly remember this one. E.V.O. The Theory of Evolution certainly isn't the smartest game I've played by a long shot, but you can't beat Space Jesus telekinesing himself into the air to fight the devil. I know this is a pretty different format than what I normally do, but I thought it'd be a more entertaining way to convey what I thought about this game. If you got anything you want to say about either E.V.O. or tell me what you think about this kind of format, feel free to do so in the comments section. All the supported stuff, like, subscribe, notifications are in the same place as always, and yeah, I ain't quite sure what's next, but should be interesting, right? I'll see you later. Till next time.